computer. Got it.
You got it?
Uh-huh.
Okay, cool. Have fun.
Thanks, Erica.
Thank you.
And
Thanks.
what is it that I'm starting, Deb?
Well, just kind of the conversation. We can let Ron actually go ahead and start because he's kind of carrying the heaviest burden right now on a lot of things. So Ron, you want to kind of give us an update? You got to unmute yourself. Thank you. Perfect.
Everything's kind of running together, and I don't even know what day it is. So just kind of touching base. What I've been trying to do is, as best as possible, for our members, one, put out brush fires as they develop, and two, call around to municipalities. I think now I'm probably on my third round of phone calls, so probably another couple days I'll make a fourth round of phone calls. But the biggest holdup that we've seen is with certain municipalities in doing inspections, and depending on what sort of what side of the equation you're on, obviously whether you're lending or insurance or what have you, unfortunately it seems like government right now is getting in the way of private transaction. As you know, Friday the governor put in the stay-at-home order. Real estate was deemed essential. The only hiccup that I've seen so far, aside from government inspections getting in the way, is maybe with some of our title companies. There's maybe been some. This was late last week. Hopefully it's not happening still now. Especially down in the Egyptian service area, there's some miscommunication. They were going to simply cease transactions for this week. Because they thought that clerks, they themselves as title companies were not essential. Again, that was all clarified in the governor's order of Friday. Governments are not completely ceasing. They're still working with us on their component of the transaction in terms of inspections or recording. It's all out there. Processes are being delayed. They're just asking, in most, if not all instances, asking people to call ahead, email, and that's my instructions to members, is to do, if you've got multiple information points for that city inspector, code enforcement officer, whatever municipality you're dealing with, exhaust all of those options. If you have to send a fax, send a fax, so that way if you are in a situation where government's not responding, you've done your due diligence, you've exercised all options, because sometimes these things are getting delayed. So we're trying to arm our members with as much information as possible.
So Ron, where are we with Fairview Heights? Because they have completely shut down.
They are moving slowly. I have spoken with two members. In limited instances, they are doing, I think the two instances that we had were re-inspects that were on closings this week. They are doing those. I have yet to have a interaction with Fairview because they have not responded to my calls or emails, but two of our members have looped me in on the conversations that they have had with inspectors, and Fairview is interacting with our members. Tim, you have a question?
Well, as it pertains to this inspection issue or anything regarding a contract now, Deb, could you kind of go through the addendum that's out there? I'm not sure everybody's aware of it, and what's the best use of it? Is this the time when I would get that addendum signed, or what? How's that going to work?
Yeah, and the amendment basically, have any of you all seen it? The amendment that's out there? Okay, so the amendment basically says if they need to extend the contract, if they can't close, or basically if they want out, it's almost like a termination type thing. The California Association of Realtors is allowing all the realtor associations to use it. We've made a couple changes on it, and actually I'm in the process of a couple more just wording changes. But basically that's what it is if we have to extend the closing, if we have to do some of these things, then that's what the addendum is. So when I have Erica send out the recording, I will also send the addendum.
So is that
Wow.
addendum, can it be added to an existing contract at this
Correct.
point?
Yes, because it's an amendment slash addendum or addendum slash amendment. So, but right now we're just changing a couple of words and I've got to get the attorneys to approve it because it says agreement instead of contract, because California's must be agreements. Ours are contract to purchase real estate. So that's why Joel was just calling me our attorney just to finalize, but it is out there in its present form. And I will have Erica send the addendum with the video when she sends it out to all the affiliates so you all can see it.
And Ron, do we know if that addendum will be used by all across Illinois?
Well, no, I think right now that addendum is just being used for Greater Gateway and RASI.
Okay.
Other associations, in terms of whether or not they've got addendas, I don't know. I do think that Illinois Realtors is issuing guidance to suggest to locals that they adopt addendas or some sort of protocol in this time, but no, this addenda is just strictly for real engineering.
So going back to Fairview Heights though, what do we as members need to do? Do we start some sort of campaign or do we, you know, how do we handle that? Because it affects every single person on this call. And I've got a call this afternoon with managing brokers. So, what can we do, Ron, for like Swansea and Fairview? Swansea's basically done the same thing.
Well, Swansea's working with us though. And again, Fairview, that point of communication is there. I literally got CC'd from one of our managing brokers and Fairview just in the past half hour. I've not had a chance to respond to that. But again, I've got the CC from the inspector in Fairview, so I'm going to make formal contact with him and say, hey, are we in an instance where if we have an immediate closing date, especially if it's an unoccupied structure, are you still willing to do that inspection? Or as in the case of St. Clair County, are you going to let, not stand in the way of occupancy, let the individuals move in and then the buyer, or if it's a leased property, let the tenant then call the main office and then get in on an inspection for sometime in April before the resume.
So you guys as lenders, because we have several lenders on here, how do you feel about those kind of closings where there's an occupancy permit, but there has been no inspection done, and that inspection will come back down the road at some point? Does that affect you as lenders?
As far as my company, not really, because the only time we ask for an occupancy permit is if in the contract it specifically says that was one of the requirements. So a lot of times, unless the contract actually says that, we're not even calling for a copy of the occupancy permit.
But our contract says it all the time.
No, it's not at the, I guess our underwriter is only when, sometimes some real estate agents in the special sections will say, this is subject to, prior to closing, seeing the occupancy permit. I guess our underwriters, when they see it handwritten in there, that's what they tend to throw it on the funding sheet, that they want a copy of the occupancy permit. Otherwise, they don't really ask for it. Yeah, so it's really not affecting us. You know, now other loan companies might have different policies.
And
Jody's
hey,
correct. We're the same way.
Yeah, I think, Deb, it is a lender to lender thing. I don't think most people do anymore. But I would caution everybody. I mean, most lenders issue that loan commitment, right? And there's all these little standard clauses in there that most of us don't even read anymore because they've been in there forever and they don't mean a hoot. But now these are things that might slow us down that we probably all need to just stop and pay attention to. I mean, instead of asking the question on the day of closing, ask them the question a week before. Do we have an issue here? Is this going to be something that slows us down? I mean, that would be my advice to any agent I was talking to.
Well,
Patrick, is there anything about is there anything about the insurance industry that is going to be slowing down as a result of, current situation?
Life insurance will probably slow down as the states start to shut down what they consider essential and non-essential. Getting those paramed tests done for people over $250,000 is going to be a
What
lot
about
more
home
limited. Home
What about
insurance,
home
no. Home insurance, nothing. Liberty, I think for right now, it seems like we've suspended our external inspections, but those are only 20% of the time anyways, and they're done at random, so they're never one particular house or anything. So as far as I've seen in the last 2 weeks of business, like there's nothing that's changed or will slow us down from continuing to write. It's just there are some companies that I have access to that if they require internal inspections, and these are on houses that are, $1 million plus in dwelling coverage, some of them have said call underwriting for revised timetables on things on when that's due back. But my flagship is fine.
Debbie, what about title?
Well, I have a question as far as to the lenders, as far as appraisals. Have you noticed anyone not going in it to any of the homes and the appraisals are not getting done? And two, are you doing what kind of 90-day locks? Because we are not being able to get into the courthouses all the time. I mean, we're of course doing it from laptops and that, but we have to schedule time to get into the courthouse for anything that's over 100 years or right at 100 years that we have to do searches for. So question as far as appraisals, are we seeing a stoppage in that?
I'll say as far as we're concerned, we had a couple appraisers that were concerned. We removed them from our rotation. So we're not gonna let that happen. One of the struggles I think that is happening right now is, you have this big refi boom hitting at the same time you have this coronavirus issue. So we have seen some appraisers that are requesting longer turn times on those appraisals. So that has been an issue. As far as the title company, or as far as the recordings are concerned, we've kind of gone through and weeded out any investors that won't allow a gap indemnity clause. So as long as the title companies are willing to insure us from the time that it closes to the time that it actually gets recorded, at least as of right now, we're perfectly fine with that. And again, I think we had maybe 3 or 4 investors yesterday that we had to boot off of the, what was available to loan officers because they wouldn't accept it. But so we're not doing 90 days right now. Even on refis, I think for the most part, we're doing 45-day locks still. But that is a really good point. And I think that could be something that you have to start looking at. If appraisers get to the point where they're going to start taking, 2, 3, 4 weeks to do an appraisal, there's only so many guys and girls out there. So I think they're doing the best.
That's why I brought it up. That's why I brought it up. I'm just kind of like, where are we at on that? Because we all have to work together.
And my lender's basically the same. They've instructed appraisal, when setting up appraisal appointments to the house that's getting appraised, for them to turn on all light switches, open closet door, open stuff up and turn on, because we want the appraiser to go in and basically be able to walk around without touching anything. So we've given instructions out to the people that's going to be letting the appraisers in to be prepared so they don't have to touch anything. And so I've only had a couple of clients that were kind of like, ooh, is the appraisal coming? Appraiser coming. We haven't had any of our appraisers really say anything about it though. But they are thinking about that. And they're working with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac about just allowing exterior only appraisals in some instances. And on refinances, we've gotten a lot of appraisal waivers. So that's good. So we're not even needing to do appraisals. And as far as locks, we're just trying to be allowing more time. Something that I normally lock for 30 days, so I'm doing 45-day locks on now.
Thank you.
On refinances, we were doing 60-day locks just to give us enough time. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that Fannie and Freddie, the Fannie and Freddie stuff actually came out late yesterday, so we ought to be seeing that. I mean, we actually got all the instructions, and Jody's right. For the most part, most transactions aren't going to require full appraisals, so that should ease a lot of the pain that we're that we thought we were about to see at least.
Yeah, but
Tim?
I think where a lot of lenders will slow down is all of our support staff are all working remotely too for the first time. A lot of times, I mean, you know, so they're all working through all the issues, the things, you know, things I do normally that might take me 15 minutes, take me longer now because I'm working on a small laptop screen, like you said. And all of our closers and processors and those folks are all doing the same thing now. They don't have the same laptop, but you get my point. It's just
Right.
not as easy to work remote when you're not used to doing it. So
I think to Tim's point, you know, if there's a message that we need to spread right now is that, you know, now more than ever, we need to be the team that we wish we always were. And, you know, loan officers, real estate agents, appraisers, everybody, you know, they need to truly work hard together because for the client, it's all about expectations. And, you know, if we're not all mirroring the same statement and there's, you know, different people saying different things, you know, it's not cohesive. And that uncertainty is, I think, what scares consumers. So I think when we just approach it from the standpoint, you know, when the realtor's talking to the client, you know, of how important it is that, hey, you're working with Tim, he's a great guy. You're working with Jody, she's amazing at what she does. And they support the things that we're going to be saying to the client. I just think that it's really, really important that we're all on the same message there.
I
And
have a managing broker meeting today, and I'm doing the same thing. And one of the messages I'm really going to reiterate is I had a home inspector call me very upset on Monday because he had an agent call and chew him out and say, who are you kidding? Real estate is shut down. Well, where did that come from? So the governor's thing, Ron read it and put a post out for us. It was very clear that real estate is still moving and going to continue to move forward at this point. And I got to be honest, I think we take advantage of that because who knows how long this will last. Ron has been tasked with working with the city governments, trying to make this work. And I find it interesting that most of the appraisers are not having a problem going out and doing appraisals, but we've got city inspectors who, my cat has decided he wants to meet you all, sorry. But yet we have city inspectors that don't want to go. Ron worked a deal. Ron, you want to tell them about O'Fallon? Because I thought that was just amazing.
Sorry. They're trying to do virtual inspections, and in lieu, in some instances, they will allow if all parties agree, that's the imperative thing, all parties agree, they will accept the private home inspection that would have been negotiated as part of the contract. And then on the key things that they're concerned about, so the smoke detector, CO2 detector, if you do via FaceTime or Skype or something like that, video conferencing, they'll allow the homeowner, the realtor, the home inspector, whoever to, you know, reach up and hit the button on the CO2 detector, so that way the city staff remotely can verify that those key things are working. And then also at the same time, seeing most governments willing to walk into unoccupied structures, again, since our big concern is human-to-human interaction and surface things of that nature. If structure is unoccupied, we're seeing municipalities willing to do that.
But unfortunately, that percentage is pretty low. Is our biggest
Case-by-case basis.
Yeah.
And
But our percentage is pretty low on what's vacant and what's not.
Right. And the important thing that I'm trying to stress to our members is that if you're going to list in weeks or you're looking to do something this summer, don't expect a municipality to come out and inspect you. We're only one case-by-case basis. If you've got a closing that's scheduled within the next week or something like that. And that goes to kind of what Tim said, trying to project ahead, you know, not necessarily be thinking about these questions for 48 hours in advance, be thinking about a week in advance if you can. So That's kind of the guidance that we're trying to offer to our members at the same time, trying to, get these municipalities to hopefully move and work with us on these things.
So the biggest issue that the agents are going to have for these municipalities who are waiving the inspections temporarily, and then they will, as soon as they're back up and running, whatever time frame they deem that to be, then they're going to go out and do these inspections. So you have a closing, lenders, insurance, title companies are all good with the closing. 3 months, 6 months from now, when that city inspector goes back out, who's to say that that property is in the same what am I trying to say, condition that it was when it closed? So a buyer decides they're going to do a do-it-yourself project, and they double lug the electrical panel, but it wasn't like that when the home closed. Now the buyer is going to go after the seller, wanting money back because the city inspector found these things. I'm fearful that we're going to have a lot of lawsuits and a lot of agents struggling 3 to 6 months from now, because these inspections are now being done. And how do they find the seller if it was something that was there? And how does the buyer prove it was like that when they closed on the house? I mean, 3 to 6 months from now, Ron thinks he's losing his mind now. My concern is it's going to get 1,000 times worse. So that's why Ron's been doing what he's doing, trying to get these cities to get out there and do these inspections, because otherwise, I think it's going to be a nightmare. And so we'll see.
Deb, if this new disclosure is giving some outs to the buyer, not that anybody wants to encourage them to get out of their contract, of course,
Right.
but if the new disclosure is giving them these outs, and they choose to proceed with the transaction, is there not some type of hold harmless agreement that can be done? Because at that point, I mean, I know it sucks to put that on the buyer, but they don't have to close. So if they choose to close, because it's not like the seller intentionally did anything wrong either. It's kind of unprecedented, and you would think that there would be some kind of conscious decision that has to be made.
But here's the problem, Doug, and I don't disagree with you. Here's the problem that I see. A buyer buys a $90,000 house. We know that they probably don't have a lot of excess money if they're buying a $90,000 house, depending on the area, but I'm just being real general here. The city inspector comes in and there's an electrical issue that's going to cost $5,000 to fix. That buyer doesn't have $5,000. Now where are we? Now what does the city say? Well, you're already occupying it. What can the city evict them? I mean, because that buyer doesn't have that kind of money. And so I think that's where the issues come in, Doug, is it's all well and good that the buyer says, sure, I'll go ahead and close. But if there's issues the city find that they can't afford, you all know many times the seller takes it out of whatever they're getting from closing. And that's where, whoever gets paid, who am I trying, like the basement people, Midwest Basements, or those people, a lot of times they get paid out of the seller's proceeds. Well, who's to say the seller's proceeds aren't gone 3 to 6 months from now, right? They've put it into another house. Where does that money come from? And now are we going to force people into foreclosure because we can't get city inspections done right now? And I think that's worst case scenario, but I think it's a very valid argument for the buyers. And if the problem was there before the buyers bought it, then, isn't the seller really responsible? I just am concerned what's going to happen 3 to 6 months from now. And it hopefully won't affect you all directly, but I think it's going to affect home inspectors. I think it's going to affect agents, managing brokers, and I'm sure that's going to be a big conversation this afternoon as to what do we do? How do we do this? So Doug, great question. I don't know that that's a very good answer. I don't know.
Rod, has there been any guidance at all from the counties in reference, or the cities in reference to that specific topic?
No,
No.
have they, Ron?
No, and I'll be honest.
Deb's right. I mean, that's a pretty big pill to swallow for anybody, let alone a low income buyer.
Yep.
Honestly, if anything, what this does is just reinforce the notion that the municipal inspections are about the biggest waste of time on the face of the earth. Because
Yes.
it's creating an issue where every 2 hours, and just today, I literally had to get on the phone to make sure that we had a member that was in the process of trying to lease and to a Section 8 family in St. Clair County. And because government was going to not do the re-inspect because of a shutdown, and our member had went and taken pictures of everything that they cited that needed to be re-inspected, they had cleared through all of that stuff with a contractor to make all those upgrades. Government was literally going to make a family homeless in 48 hours. That's a level of frustration that we're dealing with now. So hopefully, yes, this is creating a liability for our members.
Huge.
Are being a pain in the butt, but hopefully, to a certain extent, there is some common sense that kind of comes out of this, and hopefully better angels will prevail. But again, we're in 2020 and common sense isn't so common anymore.
Yeah. Debbie, you had something. Did you have something?
Yes, I just want to make sure that all title companies are open, but we are at First American, and I know that most everyone, I've talked to a lot of the title companies, they're saying the same thing. We are only taking the signers back. So that being said, lenders need to talk to their customers, agents need to talk to their customers and let them know, and we're going to be overnighting everything. And with the refi boom, it is going to be crazy as far as getting them scheduled. So please take that into consideration. And
So you only want
go
signers
ahead.
and Ron, I know this is always funny when I say this to you. I know that the federal government is working on maybe passing a Ron thing, but for the title company, Debbie, does that help you right now if the federal government does pass it?
Not sure. I'm
Okay.
really,
Because it's
We're all kind of struggling right
We're
now.
all-
on that.
yeah.
So from a lending standpoint, I don't know about everybody else, but some people already have either a hybrid closing, or they have the ability for the full Ron, but from county to county and from investor to investor, some do and some don't accept it. We'll have, by the end of this week, we'll start doing hybrid closings. But that's the struggle with the full is who will and who won't accept it. So
Right. And FYI, the counties are like, I believe now they're almost a week and a half back on recordings. I mean, we're e-filing. In Madison County, we can we can do deeds and mortgages and everything. E-filing. St. Clair, no, only mortgages. When are they going to change that, Ron?
They're trying to drag counties into the 21st century. Good question.
Wow.
But to that, I'm keeping my fingers crossed. This is not necessarily for public consumption. I hope I'm not going to regret saying this. I know that a number of our members have been rightfully so clamoring for an electronic Ron, as opposed to physical Ron right here that's speaking to you now. We're hoping that through executive order today, or hopefully by the end of today, the governor is going to put in place a Ron system for Illinois. So again, we've not gotten the official guidance from that. I know our organization, Illinois Realtors, was pushing for that. We think we're going to have it, but just bear with us. Again, we've been trying to push for that, and it seems like we're seeing some movement. So when that executive order is issued, obviously the state association we'll be pushing out messaging on that to all of our members.
And then Ron, I made Ron yesterday an admin on our Facebook page so that he was on our RPAC page, but now he is on our whole page. So every time Ron gets those kind of things, he will put them, our Ron will put them out on Facebook. So please be sure you guys are following our Facebook page, because he's really breaking really, really timely information. And for those of you who don't know, Ron, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ron is an electronic notary system, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
It would be an electronic notary system.
Right. So that's the key.
Debbie, you need to, I got a question for you.
Yes.
Are you seeing any, aside from delays, are you having any counties that are being difficult to work with, or are you finding that most counties are willing to work with you on recording and stuff like that?
As far as I know, everyone's working. I mean, this is new to everyone. At first, they were not letting anyone in. They shut down. But in Madison, we're e-recording. It's just that it's about 7 days lag time,
Okay.
which then I have builders, though, that are calling, going, I need that recorded deed so I can go ahead and start. You know, of course, they're not staying at home. So it affects everything.
Yeah.
But no, everyone is working together. I guess they go in, and from what I'm gathering, what I've been told is you have an allotted time that you can go in and do searches. Of course, we can all search electronically, but then after so many years, you do have to go in and getting copies and everything. But then all the counties are limited to only their deputies that are in there. They've already sent everybody home.
Right.
So it is a slow process. That's why we're not going to get, and this means all title companies are not going to get their commitments out as fast as we normally did.
Well, and I think that's where Doug's comment, and
That was
Doug,
earlier.
I'm sorry, Debbie, go ahead.
No, that's fine.
Where Doug's comment, and I wrote this down, that we all need to be the team that we always wanted to be. And Doug, if I can steal that from you, I think I'd like to share that at the managing broker meeting today, and just continue. I think that one of the things I've been sending out in my emails is we need to be the shining stars right now. We need to be the ones that are being positive, that, you know, we need to keep saying we're here, we're open, you know, real estate is not shut down, and we're all working together to get to the end goal, which is closings and no lawsuits 3 to 6 months from now.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I mean, you know, this is a time where everybody is gravitating towards doom and gloom. I mean, it's all that's talked about in the media. It's all
Yes.
you hear about, and every
all
day
that's
is
on
something new
Facebook.
that they're trying to scare the hell out of us with. And, you know, and, you know, the other thing is too, you know, that I think that we need to really share with each other right now is correct. We're not shut down. And a lot of people are looking at this time right now as like a forced vacation. And, you know, even though there might not be a whole lot of people listing their homes right now, and that might slow down a little bit, you know, the agents and the lenders and the, you know, the people involved in the real estate community, the more you're reaching out and touching people and educating
Yes.
people and making them feel better about the situation now, you're the ones that are going to reap the rewards whenever this thing does turn around. Because that's the other thing as far as, you know, planning ahead that everybody needs to think about is, you know, the slowdown right now is obviously kind of crazy. I mean, look what we're going through. But, you know, we've said for a long time, we've been really watching the market and trying to figure out why aren't people listing their homes. And, you know, the most common denominator that we've come up with is people were insanely addicted to their very low interest rates. You know, I'm a perfect example. I've got a 3.25 on my house. I've been there 14 years. And it's not like I haven't thought about building or moving the last couple of years, but the last damn thing I was going to do is go from 3.25 to 4.5. You know, so rates go down, and now we're seeing these high 2 and low 3% rates again. And, you know, it just needed to stick around long enough that I think people felt confident that it was going to stay for a while for them to consider listing their home and either moving up or moving down. We were right at that time, and then this coronavirus thing hits. So I think the thing that
Yes.
everybody's going to be mindful of is when this thing does clear up, there's probably going to be a a mass amount of people that are ready to do something. They've been cooped up in their home. They've been thinking
Yes.
about buying a house for a really long time. They've been thinking about listing their house for a really long time. And when we're going to have, the norm is going to be high 2% rates, we're going to have a mass influx of people listing and buying. And I just think everybody needs to be ready for it.
And I got to tell you, the agents I've been talking to are going on listing appointments right now for when, the time comes, when exactly what Doug's talking about, whether that be June 1st, July 1st, whatever that date may be, that they're ready to go. And I think you're absolutely 100%. I think it's going to be like the gates opening. As soon as the restaurants open back up, there's going to be 2-hour waits. I think we're not a society that's used to being at home, and people are looking at their houses going, yeah, I'm stuck here and I'm really not that happy with it. So agents are still going on listing appointments a lot. But I think that you guys need to get out on Facebook. Patrick, you always do such a nice job. A lot of you do, but Patrick always does a cool thing. And every day I see him posting, I'm open for business. I'm here. I can do everything I do from home that I do for you otherwise. So I think Doug, Jody, Debbie, Tim, you guys need to be out there on Facebook saying the same things. So, because we're open, you may see me here tomorrow. I'm going to be back in the office, but you see Ron there, but we're getting our jobs done and we're here for y'all. So we need to all remember that. So great comment, Doug. I think that's really going to happen, and we really need to be ready for when that does happen.
I think people are also just in general worried about it being more complicated now to go through the process. And so a lot of, at least in the last week with people that use me regularly and follow up with other clients, it's been, how much can I stress the electronic process of what you're doing? I
Right.
can still walk them through everything that they need to see. They're just looking at it on their own screen and I'm looking at it on my screen while we talk about whatever they want to talk about instead of just being face to face. So, and I have been very, in Facebook and in everything, I'm very much a people person. I like to be in front of people. So it's hard for me to not schedule that time with people. But
Me
it's,
too.
business still has to go forward. People are still, people are still renewing. People are still having questions. They still need those local. They still need us. They still need local. They still need somebody that they can talk to that isn't a 1-800 number. So flexing our optimism about the selling environment is only going to help us in the long run. And I think, Doug, I think you're absolutely right. Like once this comes out of the gates and we're all able to kind of emerge from our cocoons, it's going to be good. It's
Well,
going to
and
be
I
really
have
good.
to say, what a perfect time. If you do have extra time, some of you do, some of you don't. If you have that extra time, reach out to those past clients. Talk to them about, I'm sure you guys are, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but Patrick, reach out to those past clients, and because they're lonely too, a lot of them. Like my mom, she's home alone. I shouldn't probably say that out on video, but reach out to some of those people, talk to them. They want to talk. You may be on the phone longer than you want to be, but why are we not reaching out to those past clients and talking to them and seeing how they're doing? Because we don't want them to forget us. And this is the perfect time when we never have time to do this. What a great time right now to be doing those things.
Deb, that's a huge point because, when you look at salespeople in general, not just real estate agents, not just loan officers, but salespeople in general, the number one thing we should always be doing is staying in contact with our past clients because, for 30 or 45 or 90 days, whatever the process was from the pre-qualification when they bought a house, we got to know them so well, like, their cat's name, their, what their kid does in sports, all this stuff. And then these people never call them again. And everybody's heard the
Right.
statistic that like 80-something% of people said they would use their loan officer or realtor again, but only 12% actually do.
That's right.
And that's because you love the ever living hell out of them and then never call them again. So
Right.
a lot of times, when we talk about farming your database, one of the number one concerns or obstacles that lenders and real estate agents struggle with is, well, man, I screwed this up for the last 2 or 3 years. I never called them. What the heck do I say now? Well, number one, go on an apology tour. Hey, you know how I said I'd always be there for you? Man, I just want to apologize because life got crazy and I did not follow up like I said I was going to. So the number one reason I'm calling right now is just to say I'm sorry. And going forward, I'll be there for you. By the way, how are you doing? How are you
Right.
handling all this coronavirus stuff? Blah, blah, blah. There's nothing wrong with doing that. I mean, if the guy that sold you a car 5 years ago called you out of the blue and did the apology tour, you wouldn't be mad that they called you. You'd think,
What a
wow,
great-
that was kind of cool of them. And then from there, if they followed up every 3 months with you, you wouldn't think anything out about it at all. So
Right.
it's the perfect reset for anybody who's not been reaching out to their past clients. You've got the perfect reason to call them and actually start being there for them like we said we would in the first place.
And Patrick, I think of Patrick again when I think of this, but Amazon is still delivering. Just ask my husband, because I've been doing a little ordering. But Patrick and his games that he plays, what a great time to spend $5-10 on a board game to send to your clients that maybe have families, or like my husband and I that are the two of us here. What a great time for a package to be delivered that is a board game, that's something fun for us all to do again together. So a puzzle. Puzzles are big right now again. I love puzzles. So, I just think there's a lot of things we can all be doing right now, besides being on Facebook griping about the weather and what's going on.
I think that it's so important now and there's an expression I've used forever. It's just never let them see you bleed. But like, there are so many worse things that could be going on right now that I am the last person that's going to complain about the inconveniences of what I'm going through. Like, there are people that have been displaced, that have lost their jobs. There are people, nurses that can't go home and see their families because of their self-quarantining or whatever the case may be. Like, it's difficult. So trying to take a very lighthearted approach to it and let them know that, like, legitimately when I ask people, like, tell me about your day, like, I'm not kidding. I have extra time now where I can listen to that for a longer period of time. But it's just good to know that they're still out there. They're still doing their own thing. They're still making their way through their life. And so some of these people are like, I'm saving a ton of money right now because I'm not driving anymore. Or, I'm not going out to eat at lunch, every day of the week. And so however they're choosing to save money, if you can find ways to relate that back to what, to them and just making them feel important, like it's a great time for us to have those soft hits with clients. Like,
And what a great
I've been
thing for
taking
you,
advantage
Patrick.
of it.
What a great thing for you. If you're saving your pennies right now from your Starbucks or your lunch, what a great time to buy life insurance. Or if that's a problem with the bigger policies, what a great time to start a down payment for a home, you lenders, or, whatever whatever it might be.
Well, just
So,
having more time to review that stuff too, because you think, so 2 years, it's almost been, no, a year and a half since I purchased my house. The original rate was 5.1%. I
wow.
probably wouldn't have paid attention to that. I would have just kept going. But rates have changed, and now people have a little bit more downtime than ever. Like, I can't even make the excuse to, oh, I got to get off the phone. Like, I got to run. Like, I don't have anywhere to go. Like,
I'm not
at
running.
home. I am at home for 24 hours a day. So please,
Yeah.
I got time. But if it gives them more time to kind of look at those numbers and go, you know what? I haven't refinanced in 4 years and I'm at 6% or I'm at 3%. Like, hey, I can still get this stuff done. And somebody brought that to my attention. Like, man, maybe you're just leaving money on the table. And while you have this extra time that you're not so involved with extracurriculars like, sporting events or your kids' sports or, running to this and that event after work, take time to look at your budget and then realize, like, man, I've been paying rent for 10 years and I could really probably buy a house for what I'm paying. Or it's, I think they'll be surprised, but they have more time. So I look at it that way too, is we've got more time, but they've got more time. There's a lot
What a-
more of them than there are us.
What a great video, our lender friends. What a great video. Great time to work on your budgets and how can you afford that down payment, or how can you afford that extra payment every month that now gets you closer to your end game. You're not paying for 30 years, you're paying for however many it is. So, I just think there's a lot. And exercising. I think it'd be great if people would get out there and show that I walked 4 miles last night with my neighbor, and believe it or not, she talks more than me. And we walked really fast. So we need to be out there exercising and take care of our mental and physical health too. So that's another thing I think we should be really promoting out there on our Facebook pages is, let's get out there, let's exercise. The weather hasn't been greatest, but I dodged the raindrops and was out walking last night. And I got to tell you, I was a nicer person when I got home. And my husband was grateful.
I think with restaurants and bars being closed, I could save up enough money for a down payment on a new house. And
You could
Right?
buy $1 million
So much
home,
money.
Doug.
I feel like I just got a pay raise from
There
all
you
the money
go.
I'm not spending going out.
I know, but Panera misses me every morning. I'm just saying.
and Deb, to your point, that I saw a statistic a week or so ago that like 80-something% of homeowners would benefit from a refinance right now. So don't forget about your lender friends. We would love to help your friends and family.
You betcha. Absolutely. And you know what? Be promoting that to the agents too.
Yeah,
all
that was
your
one of the
agent
things I
friends.
brought up to a few agents a couple of weeks ago was, another always looking for excuses to touch your database and reach out to your past clients. And that was one of the things. And I actually got a few agents that ended up sending deals over because of that. It's just
Yep.
an excuse to reach out to their past clients because, those clients still trust that real estate agent. And if that real estate agent is the one that reached out to them and saved them $150 or $200 or $300 a month, they're going to, that consumer is always going to give that agent the credit for helping them because
Yes.
they said they were looking out for them and they said they would take care of them and they did.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. 100%. Anything else? I wish we'd have had a home inspector on here today and I know they're also still very busy. And I had a couple who asked to record this because I know they're having their own struggles. Debbie, like you, they're asking only the signers be at the home inspections rather than, Uncle Joe and Sister Susie and all the 20 kids, that they're asking that it just be the signers be there. So, again, special times, and we just all have to know what our limitations are in those kinds of things when we are doing things in the public. And thank you to everyone who are still doing those things. So thank you all. Anything else? So I'm thinking maybe we do this every couple weeks and just check in and see how everybody's doing. And if there are new things out there that are problems, we're very lucky and blessed right now. The governor left us open. 2 weeks from now, that might not be the case. We don't know. I'm fingers crossed. But Tim?
Just thanks everyone for sharing. I mean,
Yes.
as we all come up against
Thank you.
challenges, the fact that we can share how we got around it helps everybody else. And that's what it's all about, in my
Yes.
opinion. So I do appreciate it. I've read a lot of stuff on social media about how to get around things, how to make things work, and keep it coming. So
Very good. Well,
Thank
thank
you,
you
Deb,
all.
one more thing real quick.
Yeah, Doug.
Something that the broker owners or the real estate agents, might, tip their clients to is to always make sure they're reaching out to their local loan officer for any loan related questions they have. And I think the reason that's so important, Jody and Tim, I don't know if you guys see this stuff as often as I do, but today in this digital age, you've got consumers that are going out to Dr. Google and trying to get all the loan answers and all the guideline answers. And the problem is when they do that, whenever they get the answer, the consumer has no way of knowing, is that guideline you just read, is it lender specific? Is it the actual agency guideline? Is the guideline 4 years old? That there's so much bad information that's out there. And especially today with the market being as crazy as it is, with Fannie and Freddie changing things very rapidly, it's super, super important that the agent doesn't try to answer questions that they might not have the right answer to. And, again, just as a little, PSA to their client, hey, make sure you're talking to Jody about this stuff because she's the expert and the stuff you find online just might not be true.
Very, very
Right.
good point. And
Doug, if it was on the internet, it's true.
of course.
What the
it
hell's wrong
is.
with me?
But you know what, Doug? Thank you for that. I will bring that up this afternoon to our managing brokers and say to them that that's exactly what's going on, that they need to reach out to all of you. Patrick, same thing for you. Debbie, same thing for title companies that you're still open and you're still standing. And Doug, again, I really appreciate your verbiage on we need to be the people that we've always wanted to be too, right? So that's why I'm back out exercising. So plus
All
my
right, guys.
husband's home.
Well,
And
good
he's
for you,
making
Deb,
me-
because for me, it's a fail. Not exercising, whatever, I just take a break. Oh, my computer is trying to, there's a pause. I hit the kitchen. I don't know what it is. It's like, okay, pause, go to the kitchen.
Yeah.
I don't know how
Well,
many times I
actually,
walk to the kitchen. That's the
I'm
only exercise I
sitting in
get
the
these
kitchen.
days.
I'm sitting at my kitchen table. My refrigerator is right there saying, I'm open for business too. But
A
I'm
lot of
really
times when I'm
missing.
halfway through the living room, I'm like, Jody, stop, go back to your office. You do
Well,
not
just
need to
reach
go
out
to the
to any
kitchen.
of us, Jody. We'll be here for you.
I'm looking for a string of successes in my life, and I'm so bad at exercising and losing weight that I'm going to stick to what I'm good at, which is eating, taking pictures of my food, and telling everyone how amazing it is.
Very good
Yes. How
point,
can you go
Doug.
wrong with that? How can you
There
go
is
wrong with
nothing
that?
wrong with
Gotta be
that
good
at
at
all.
something.
Fruit.
I'm
Except
gonna be honest. I'm missing my chocolate long johns, and you know, at the grocery store now, you have to buy them in a big box, like a dozen at a time. And I'm like, I just can't do it. So that's been a plus for me too.
Just
Well,
trying to
thank you.
support small businesses and make sure that,
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm doing my part to keep them in business by eating out.
you local, you bet.
All right.
Thank you all.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for being such a
Thank
great
you.
support system.
Thanks, everyone.
Everybody take
Yeah.
care of themselves and their families. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good to see you all.